Hi everyone. We hope you're doing well and staying safe at home. My name is Rachel and this is my husband Kenny, and together we own Skosh Catering. Skosh Catering is a boutique catering company located in Walled Lake, servicing the Metro Detroit and Southeast Michigan areas. We've had the pleasure of providing the Duo team in Ann Arbor with catering for various events over the past year. We appreciate you guys, we miss you guys, and we can't wait until this is all over and it's safe enough for us to feed you again. But in the meantime, we're here to help you get through the rest of quarantine with some at-home cooking tips and a demonstration. Today, Kenny is making a takeout at-home dish with sesame chicken, fried rice, and stir-fried veggies. We want to keep this as interactive as possible, so please, if you have any questions, ask them in the chat, and then if we can't get to them at that moment, we'll have a Q&A at the end. So, ready?
I'm ready.
Let's get started.
All right, today we're doing takeout. I know that everyone's favorite restaurants are not open these days. Sometimes at the grocery store it's hard to get food and all the proper food. So what we're doing today is kind of a fridge cleaner. You can use multiple different items in your fridge to make this meal. But first we're going to start off by making some rice. If you have old rice at your house, like left over from the night before, you can go ahead and use that as well. But today we're going to use basmati rice. It is a South Asian rice. It's a longer grain rice that is it's easier to cook because there's less starch in it. So you're not going to get the clumpy rice that you normally might get. So we're going to start off with that. In this pot right here, I have some boiling water. It just started boiling. So we're going to go ahead and add a little bit of olive oil to that and a little salt and pepper. You're going to always want to make sure you have flavorful water to cook your rice or noodles or anything in. So we're just adding that. It's already up to a boil. My ratio for rice typically is 2 to 1. So it's 2 part water to 1 part rice. Now that I have the water boiling, I'm going to go ahead and add my rice to that. I'm going to let that come back up to a boil. And then once that comes to a boil, I'm going to turn it down to a simmer and put the lid on for probably about 15 minutes or so. But while that's going, we are going to start on cutting some veg. So we're also going to do not just for the fried rice, but we're going to do for the veggie stir fry. And at the end of this, we're going to have a composed dish. So instead of cutting vegetables multiple different times, we're going to show you how to use different parts of the pepper, the carrot, onions, things like that. So here I have 2 different pans in front of me. That way I can, cut it and set each dish aside. That way when we're cooking, we're good. So first I'm going to start with the bell pepper. Make sure the sticker's off. I don't know how many times I've started to cut a pepper and it's all stuck together because I left the sticker on. But first you're going to start by cutting the top and the end. Discard this little piece. And then you're going to take your knife, like just the tip. No joke. And then you're just going to carve it just like that. And that way you're taking out all the seeds. And you're going to take out this white part. This white part tends to be bitter when you start to cook it, so you don't really need it. Cut it in half. The reason why we do that is because you want more of a size that you can handle. If it's just going to be easier, so you're not going to be cutting yourself. So take the top of the pepper. To get a nice dice, you can come across like that, and then you can just slowly dice it, or julienne it first. And then after that, we're going to dice it. And this is going to be for your fried rice. So we're just going to take that, and we're going to set it aside. In the meantime, I'm going to turn down my rice to a simmer. Just check it out. And it's usually, if it starts boiling too much, you can take the lid off a little bit so it's not ripping in there, because you want a nice low simmer for that. That way it just absorbs the water and it doesn't beat up the rice too much. But you can take your other top, cut it into strips, turn it sideways, and then dice it. And if you're not comfortable with a certain knife, use whatever knife you have in your house that you're comfortable with. I always curl my knuckles like that. That way nothing's getting in the way. You can just sit there and practice a little bit, but you will get used to it. The other pepper, so that way we're using the entire pepper, we're just going to julienne. So you have this nice sized pepper. We're just going to cut it into strips. And this is going to be for our stir-fried vegetables. Take that other half. And that's it. So that way we used all of the pepper. We didn't have any waste. And we're good. So next up, carrots. Carrots are only going to go into the fried rice. So you really want to discard the ends. And then you want to cut it into more of a manageable piece. So this being round, it's going to slide on you. So what you really want to do is cut it in half and then just cut one little strip out of it. That way you have a flat surface. It's going to prevent you from cutting yourself. So just cut it into nice uniform slices. So I have them just like that. And then you're going to go back, and just like we did with the pepper, we're going to go ahead and dice it. And the reason why we're dicing it and we're trying to keep it all uniform is because we want all these things to cook at the same temperature. If I have large pieces of carrot and smaller pieces of pepper, you're going to get a mix, you're going to get mushy vegetables. So really just going to want enough. If you have a family of 4, you can put more carrots. If you like more carrots, use more carrots. It's just, like I said, a fridge cleaner. If you don't have carrots, you can use something else. All right. So we're going to put that in the pan with the fried rice stuff. Then we're going to take our onion, just a normal sweet onion. You can use any kind of onion you like, but we're going to cut the base off. You're going to want to leave the furry end on there. That's going to help keep it all together. Then we're going to cut right in the middle there. We're going to take that down, and then we're going to peel it. It's okay if you take one layer of the onion off. It's a little easier sometimes like that. But on this specific one, we're going to cut the furry tip off. And that way we have a little more room, because this is going to be for our peppers, or sorry, our stir fry. So really, to get a nice julienne out of the onion, you're going to take it and you just make little slits, just like that. Flip it when you get to a certain point so that doesn't roll down on you. Just roll it down so you have a flat surface again. And you have nice julienne onion. You can take that, you can kind of crinkle it up a little bit. And that's going to be for your stir-fry veg. Now, for the diced onion, this part can get tricky. That's the reason why you keep the furry piece on, is so it stays together. So really what you're going to do is the same thing, but you're only going to cut about 75% of the way through. So you're going to use your tip of the knife and just make little slits, just like you did the other onion. And then you're going to take one knife. If you want smaller pieces, you can do this a couple times, but just go right in there. That's all you're going to do. So it's kind of like a little blooming onion. Keep it all together. But then you're just going to go back one more time, and that's how you're going to get a nice dice on that. And that's how you slice and dice an onion. So in the meantime, we'll check on our rice. It's coming along just fine. Turn your pan on. You want to start with a nice hot pan. A lot of times in cooking, if you start with a cold pan, it's not going to cook properly. You're not going to caramelize the sugars, or if you're cooking meat or anything, which we'll do later, if you start with a cold pan, it's going to dump out all the moisture, and you want it to naturally come out. So while this is heating up, we're going to start with our broccoli, and this is going to be for the stir-fry veg. Basically, you're going to take your crown of broccoli, and you're just going to cut the little florets off. You just want it in nice, manageable pieces. And that's all you really need to use, that piece. So now you have all your little florets. And again, these cook up pretty quickly. We're going to add a little liquid to them later just so they steam up. And then while this is still heating up, we're going to so here we have sugar snap peas. You can't just throw these right in a pan. You can cut them up a little bit, but they do have fibrous threads. So you either take your fingernail or the knife, and you can go around, and you can pull that out. That gets really stringy. It's going to get caught in your teeth, and it's not fun. So there's actually 2 of them. So when you come back up around, of course, this one's not going to work for me, but then you got another one that you can pull out. So that's a good way to do that. So I already pre-did these ones, so I'm just going to add these, and that's going for a stir-fried veg. Grab a towel. All right. So garlic and ginger. I think a lot of people are afraid of ginger because they don't know how to clean it. It's a very good, and it has so much good flavor. So ginger, you don't need to use a peeler. You don't need to use any of that. You take a spoon, and you really you peel it with a spoon. And that's the best way to do it, because if you use a peeler, it's going to cut too much out of it. So you're really just taking the thin layer of skin off. And this is something that we're going to use throughout this entire meal. Every dish we make today is going to have a little bit of garlic and ginger. And now what do you do with it? If you have a food processor at home or something like that, you can easily just throw it in there, mince it all up. But I like to take it and cut it into a manageable piece, just like that. You can, if you're not comfortable with the knife, you can grab a pot or a pan. But what I like to do is just take it, yeah. And that breaks it up. So it basically takes it, makes it flat, and then you can easily just go back and you can mince it. And that's a good way, and you do the same pretty much with the garlic. You just flatten it out. And that just breaks down the fibers in there and makes it easy to mince. Now, because I did more than normal, but because we're putting it in every dish, it's good to have. And then same with the garlic. You have your cloves of garlic. Basically what you're going to do is the same thing. Just flatten them out. It breaks it down. And then you can go back and you can just chop it up. You can go a little bit bigger on the garlic and ginger, especially if you like it. If you like a lot of ginger and garlic, just add more to it. All right, so for the fried rice, what we're gonna do is add a little oil. Some people might start with sesame oil. I don't really like to start with the sesame oil. It has a lower smoke point, so you can see it starting to smoke. That means my oil for this olive oil is about 350 to 400 degrees, so it's already ready to start searing. So take that. And you're really just going to have this go for about 2 or 3 minutes. You're going to make sure that it's nice and soft. And if you're not too familiar with tossing a pan like that, you can definitely use a rubber spatula. If you're at home and you want to get better at flipping your vegetables, you can put some dried beans, maybe some chocolate, some rice, even dry rice, and just go right to the beginning. And that's all you're really doing. Okay, grab a plate. So now that this is going, your pan's nice and hot. You're really giving that pan a little bit of flavor. While that's going, you can take, some people, if you're vegan, you don't have to use eggs. A lot of traditional fried rice has an egg in it. So after I get these vegetables out, all I have is 3 eggs. I'm just gonna whisk them up. Once they're whisked, we're gonna make basically an omelet in there. We can do some, or if you're not used to that, you can make scrambled eggs with it. It's totally okay, but I'll show you what to do with that. So you're just mixing it up just like you do that. I'm gonna take these out just for the meantime. If you don't have a nonstick pan, or a nonstick pan is fine, you can go ahead and just do a little pan spray in there. And a little bit of oil. That's just gonna have a barrier so that when your egg does start to cook, it's not gonna stick to it. If it does stick, it's okay. You just have scrambled eggs. So we're just gonna add that to our pan. It's still on a high heat, so you just want to watch for the burning of it. And really, you just want to keep moving it around. You want to get that liquid that's in the middle, and just keep swirling around. Constantly move your pan. And I'm not going to lie, sometimes I end up just making scrambled eggs myself. So as you can see, the side's browned up. It's nice and brown. You're getting all that liquid out to the outside. So now you have the beginning of an omelet, if you want. So if you want to take this skill and put it in towards breakfast, you would put your toppings in, your cheese in, just fold it over. Also, it's known as Italian frittata. So very simple. So now that that's done, you just fold it into a couple different little pieces. And we're just going to put that on the pan with our vegetables. So the reason why I also didn't start cooking first with our ginger and garlic is it will burn. It does get bitter. So that's why I have these things out in separate spaces. So first thing we're going to do is grab a little bit of sesame oil. So I said earlier about the smoke point. You don't want this to be super hot, but this is a good way to start. It's going to give a lot of flavor. Just like this garlic and ginger, it will start to get bitter if it's overcooked. So I'm just taking our mixture, getting that going. And once you start to see it get a little bit of brown, that's okay. That means it's just you're getting all that essence, that flavor out. So now that that's going, we're going to add our carrots and veg right back to it. And by this time, in theory, our rice should be done. Like I said, the good thing about rice, this rice is it's very forgiving. It doesn't tend to clump. You get loose grains, and it cooks fairly evenly, where some of the other rices, you might want to wash 2 or 3 times, and that's just to get the starch out. That way there's no clumps. Or if you have old rice, that's great too, because you can break that apart and put it in there. So all I'm going to do is take this rice here, just add it to it. Get rid of this pan. In the meantime, I'm going to get my other pan going for our stir-fry veg. Some people like their rice crunchy. I do, so that's why I have it in there a little earlier than most. I like it like a bibimbap. You get a nice crunchy rice, good flavor. I know my wife likes that as well. But if you don't like that crunch, you can definitely just put it in last second. I haven't added any of the sauces yet because I want that rice to thicken up. So while that's going, we're going to go ahead and, so this is called a chiffonade. A chiffonade is when you roll. You can do it with herbs, basil, you can take a clump of it, but it's all rolled up. So then you're going to get a nice even cut. And you're just going to go like this. So you get nice strips of egg in there that are all fairly uniform. And at this point too, this entire dish, besides the egg, is vegan. So now you're starting to get color, caramelization of the carrots and the peppers. That's bringing out the natural sugars, which is good. I haven't salted this dish yet besides the rice. The reason why is that we're going to add soy sauce to it. Now, or you can use soy sauce. Today we're using tamari. Tamari is a gluten-free soy sauce. It's soy sauce without the wheat. They extract that and it makes it nice and sweet. I tend to use this more than soy sauce. It's a little less in the sodium, and I think it adds a nice sweet flavor. So at this time, we're going to add a little bit of the soy sauce to flavor that hopefully now crunchy rice. We're going to add our egg, and then we're going to finish it off with some sweet peas. You're going to get that nice. You want that sugar to start cooking out of the tamari as well, and that's going to make a nice caramel flavor in there. Now we're just going to go ahead and add our egg. And I use peas. I like the sweetness of them. They add a lot of flavor to the rice itself, but I use frozen peas, and there's nothing wrong with that. And I don't add them in until the very end. The reason why is they turn brown. No one wants to eat a brown pea. Plus, especially if you're going to eat this right away, this is a very hot dish. It's going to come up hot, and this will help cool it down to make it. So right there, you have fried rice. I'm going to set that off to the corner. Next up, we're going to do our stir-fry veg, which I have a hot pan here. And we're going to add a little sesame oil to it later, but first we're going to start off with our olive oil. And all those great vegetables we cut earlier, which is nice because we don't have to go back and do the same job twice. We're just going to go ahead and add these right to that hot oil. And I like to get a good sear on these first. It's just going to help break them down. And while those are cooking, I know I like to use shiitake mushrooms in Asian cooking. I tend to buy the whole caps, but the grocery store, they only had the pre-sliced one, which is fine. That's going to help you out in prep time. But if you do end up getting the caps, you're going to want to just make sure there is going to be a stem on there. That stem is very fibrous and woody, and you don't want to eat that. So you're just going to take that cap and just cut the cap off. But today we do have cremini mushrooms, which are a little bit more common in the grocery store. So just like the carrot, you have a round edge. You don't want to cut yourself. So what you're going to do is you're going to cut the thing off, and that way you have a flat surface to start using. So you're just going to make a couple of slits. It doesn't have to be perfect. If you're more comfortable doing quarters, which is totally fine. All right. So we got this. I'm going to go ahead and remove this veg here. The reason why I'm doing this is I just wanted to get a quick sear on that. But with the mushrooms, you don't want a mushy mushroom. A lot of people don't like mushrooms because it's a textural issue. So when you have a screaming hot pan, you're going to want to start to caramelize your mushrooms. And what you're doing there is bringing the moisture out naturally. So if I were to just put these in a pan, throw the rest of the veg in there, you're going to end up with a soupy mess. So why we're doing this is it's going to get the natural liquid out of it, and on its own pace, it's going to cook in its own liquid. And we're not going to salt it until later, because if you salt it now, it's going to bring all that liquid out, and you're not going to get the flavor or the color that you want. Also, with the cooking with the soy sauce, this stuff does have a lot of sodium in it. And you want to remember too, you can always go back and taste something. You can't take ingredients out. So if I add too much salt, it's hard to bring it back out. There are some techniques, but it's not that fun. But with mushrooms too, they're like a sponge. So they're going to absorb all that oil that you initially put in. So you're going to have to go back and add more. And then while those are going, some people like chestnuts. I typically do. It's going to add a nice crunch. So I have water chestnuts here that I did drain and pat dry with a towel. The reason why we do that is because when you have that much amount of moisture, it's going to form a barrier, and you're not going to get that caramelization on it, and they're not going to cook properly. So I took all the moisture out, especially like if you're even using shrimp at home. You're going to want to pat those shrimp dry so they take up the color of the pan and get more flavor into them. So I'm just going to go ahead and add those. And again, more oil already. So those are going nicely. Now you're starting to get a lot of brown in there. I'm going to go ahead and throw a little bit of salt and pepper. And this recipe, or this version of this, we're not going to add any of the soy sauce or tamari. You're more than welcome to. I just wanted to keep it nice and simple with a little bit of fresh salt. And your main flavor is going to be your sesame oil. So now that those have picked up some color, we're going to go ahead and add these veg back. And the key too is not to get a mushy, overcooked vegetables. These are going to come out al dente, just like pasta. You're going to have a little bit of crunch to them, and they're going to hold their full flavor. And again, so far these are completely vegetarian, gluten-free. I know that Duo, you have a lot of dietary restrictions, so that's why we're also using the tamari to make sure that everyone out there can make this meal. You want to grab that chicken? And my favorite growing up was some sesame chicken. It's nice and light. We're going to use all breast meat. And if you don't want to use the chicken, again with the vegan and gluten-free, go ahead and use some extra firm tofu. That's going to hold up just like chicken. It's going to, you want to make sure to use the same methods. I like to, again, pat it dry because it is packed in water. So if you're patting it dry, it is like a sponge, so it's going to take up all that good flavor. So at this point in time, so I'm not overcooking my vegetables, I'm just going to add a little bit of sesame oil. I'm going to add just a splash of water, and this is going to help steam. I'm shutting off my burner, so there's no heat going to this anymore, and it's just natural steam. That's going to help break down that broccoli because that's the one thing that's going to take the longest to cook. So to get on our chicken. So here I just have a regular breast of chicken. To make it more of a manageable cut, you can cut it here, or I like to butterfly it, which is just going right down the middle. That way you have two pieces that aren't super thick. The technique is going to be just like the vegetables. You want something that's going to cook evenly. So you're going to try to get the same size. So we're just going to do a larger julienne. And then we're going to go back and we're going to cut it into inch-sized dices. And if you want to go smaller than that, you're more than welcome to. And just so this chicken adds, so you have that salt content to it, we're going to add a little bit of the tamari to it. And we're just going to mix that up. And this is going to add not just salt and flavor, but it's going to add that moisture for our next step. Our next step is going to be to add cornstarch to this. The reason why we do that is because we're going to pan fry this. So I already have, see how fast that smoked? That means our oil is already up to 350 to 400 degrees. So you want to be careful, especially at home. If you don't have a good vent system, you're going to end up getting a lot of smoke, kind of like we are here. But we're just coating that. Nice light. It should all be separate. You can add a little bit more. And this is also going to help thicken your sauce as well. So I turned down our temperature a little bit. So you see how nice that browned up. You did get a little couple darker pieces, but that's going to be okay. But you're going to get a nice crisp outer side, and what that's doing is that seared the juices in, and it's going to make a nice texture for your meal. So now that we've coated it on all sides with the cornstarch, we've pan fried it, now we're going to remove it so we can make our sauce for it. And what we're doing here is we're just building flavors. So we're going to get the flavor from the chicken, we're going to get the flavor from the cornstarch, all that stuff. So this is our sesame oil, since we're making sesame chicken. I'm going to add a little of that. Again, with your garlic ginger combo. Now you just want to watch it. You want it to simmer for or sear for a little bit because you're still building the depth of flavor. So that's why we're just taking it to where it starts to turn a golden brown. Then we have rice wine vinegar. Rice wine vinegar is a little sweeter than your apple cider vinegar, which is totally fine to use, but at the end, so what that is doing is deglazing your pan. It's taking all the delicious ingredients and bringing it up, and that's going to help make our sauce. So I have the rice wine vinegar in there, a little bit of the tamari, probably about 3 tablespoons of the tamari, 3 tablespoons of your vinegar. That's simmering right now. And then because the rice wine vinegar is sweet, this has a little sweet, we're going to add a little honey. And again, taste it throughout to see how sweet you want it. But this is also going to help thicken the sauce. Turn that temperature up. And once all
So
that
Chef,
kind of comes together, we're going to add probably about a cup of water.
We have a question.
Yes.
Emily is asking if you can treat vegetables in place of chicken by
Yes.
tossing them in the same breading.
Absolutely. So that would be more of like a tempura. And so what you're going to do is you're going to coat the veggies in the tamari or any soy sauce or anything like that. Coat them in the cornstarch and then do the same thing. And that's going to end up making a tempura of veggies. Yes.
And then we also have a comment about sucking at making sauces. Do you have any tips on how to make sauces other than this one?
You got to go to your friend Pinterest. It's really what you're doing, like just as you saw me do here today, is you're building depth, you're building flavor. So you're searing the chicken and then adding your flavored oils. I'll show you a trick at the end here too. My favorite thing to do is I thicken with cornstarch. I make a little slurry, I thicken with cornstarch. That also makes it gluten-free. So now that everything's going well here, we're going to add this chicken back to it. And what this is going to do is not only help thicken the sauce, but it's going to build flavor in your sauce. And with the cornstarch, in theory, it should start. But if we want it to be thicker at the end, we're going to add a little bit more cornstarch to it. And that's going to give you that nice, shiny sauce. Also with sauces, I feel with the cornstarch, it takes your oils and your vinegars and it marries them all together. It's a binder, so it brings it in nice and tight. So while these are cooking, I know it feels like there's a lot of steps, but this does make one nice cohesive meal. You're just going to grab a plate. We're going to add a little bit of your fried rice. And like I said, you don't have to use all the same vegetables that I use. It is a fridge cleaner. You can, if you have radishes you want to put in there, I've seen them. People use pork and cilantro. And it's, you know, if you have things going bad, or it's just a great use for a late night simple meal to use up your leftovers, which is awesome. So now we have our veggies. Our veggies they steam, they have nice light, not so much sodium on them, which everything else will have. So it's a nice stir fry. You don't have to steam them like I did. You can just do a hard sear on them, build up flavors that way. And so what we're really waiting for here, since the chicken has already been cut up, it's been seared once, and now it's simmering in the sauce, we're just waiting for these bubbles to just start to get a little bit thicker. So my little cheat is I'll take some cornstarch and a little bit of water. And if you want to use a chicken base, a chicken stock, a beef base, anything to help build your flavors, you know, feel free to do. So basically what I'm making here is a slurry. If you were to add this cornstarch right to this, you're going to get floaty chunks. It's not going to break down because the cornstarch reacts to the heat. So I'm using cold water, a little bit of cornstarch. There's no real ratio into it. But remember, you can't take it out. So just add a little bit in at a time. So we're just going to add a little bit. I'm going to stir it up. And you'll see how fast that just sits. But the good thing is, if you do add a little bit too much cornstarch, you can just add a little bit of water, thin it back out. And then to finish it, we're just gonna throw some sesame seeds. And that's that. Turn your heat off. Now, during this whole time, I did not add any spice. I love spice. Something I like to use is this garlic chili oil or a sambal. It's great for adding that depth of heat, or you can even top your meal with it. Sriracha is always good, or you can throw in red pepper flakes as you're cooking, but that just depends on your heat value. Again, gluten-free, not vegetarian or vegan because of the chicken, but you can substitute for the veggies, for the tofu. It's a great alternative. All we're gonna do is just spoon that there. And now you have sesame chicken with stir-fry veg and veggie fried rice.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
We have another kind of like a question comment. How would you recommend, since you obviously are the pro at having many things going at once, how would you recommend that people keep these dishes warm so that by the time they sit down to eat, everything is the same temperature?
Well, what really helps is having all your ingredients already cut, panned, ready to go. That way it ensures that you're cooking fast. You can take this pan right here. If you preheat your oven to the lowest temp, 175 to 200, you can just toss it in there and wait. But that's why I did the fried rice first, because that's gonna maintain or hold its heat. The veggies are a quick cook. You can even do these last, but this chicken in the sauce will stay nice and hot at the same time.
And we have another question. Is there a benefit to cooking the vegetables separately? I usually toss everything into my wok, veggies and all.
I like to cook my veggies separate just to build those flavors and the depth. Just like that sauce question earlier, you're gonna end up getting more flavor out of it, and things do cook at different temperatures. Like the mushrooms, you wanna cook those first. Just get that caramelization build up so you're not overcooking your sugar snap peas. Any other questions?
We don't have any more right now. Will you hold the dish up so that we can get a nice shot of it?
Yeah. Yeah. So if there's any more questions, please ask. Anything else? We got some dead time here.
Can you use arrowroot instead of cornstarch?
Yes, you can definitely use arrowroot. You can use a potato starch. If you want to thicken with flour, you can go ahead and do that. But we were just trying to make this dish gluten-free so that everyone on the team could enjoy it.
I have a question.
Okay.
What is your favorite dish to make?
I think my favorite dish to make is beef short ribs. I love to braise. I love to get up in the morning. And this is going to sound cheesy, but I love to get up in the morning, start cooking, and by 5 o'clock in the evening, I got a beautiful meal. Not just it's a beautiful meal, but it makes its own sauce. It's got flavor and depth, and it's a family favorite.
And we have a question to put you on the spot. What has been your favorite duo event so far?
I would have to say the Yoshi theme party. It kind of stretched us a little bit. We were able to get super creative. My pastry chef Jen made some awesome cookies. We dyed eggs. My wife came up with some awesome cards just to display the different names. It was a lot of fun, and I think everyone enjoyed that. That and the Brew 30s.
I think that wraps it up for questions. Any more questions? I don't want to miss anybody. Okay.
Did you get something you wanted to say?
Well, did we get a good shot of the dish? Okay, perfect. Well, if there's any were there any other questions that came through? No. All right. Cool. Well, thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm excited to eat this. I guess that wraps it up. During these unprecedented times where social gatherings are banned, we are asking any of our supporters to please help us to build our online presence, liking us on Facebook, following us on Instagram, reviewing us on Google if you've had any of our food or services. The links will be on your screen if they're not already. You can also find them on our YouTube page. And then if you do decide to make this dish at home, please tag us in it. We want to see your finished product. So thank you for watching. Thank you for cooking, as he does for all of my life. And we hope to see you guys in person very soon.